Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about upcoming changes in the 2022 edition of the World Customs Organization's Harmonized system, brought to you by the Institute of Export and International Trade. My name is William Barnes-Graham, the Senior Content Editor at the Institute, and I will be your host for the next 45 minutes or so. Next slide, please. There we go. We're going to begin today's webinar with a poll to understand a little bit more about you, our audience. So here we are asking, are you aware of what HS 2022 is? And it's a nice and easy one for you today, with the options being either yes or no, so not too complicated. While you are answering that poll, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Firstly, you can contact me with any comments or questions using the question panel on the control window to the right-hand side of your screen. We hope to get to a number of your questions towards the end of the webinar, but please bear in mind, we have received a lot of questions in advance, so we'll not be able to get to all your queries today. And just a quick tip, by the way, on questions. If your questions are succinct and easy for me to understand, I am far more likely to ask them because there's only so quick I can read. So please do try to keep them relatively short and clear. If you feel as though your question has not been answered, please do review our technical helpline or training and consultancy offerings, which we will be talking about later in the webinar. Secondly, you will receive access to today's slide pack and a recording of the webinar in a follow-up email we will be sending over the next day or so. So please do try to listen in as carefully as you can to the presentation, as you can read the slides back at a later time. Right, I'm going to close that poll in just a couple of seconds. I'll give you last chance to do it. 3, 2, 1. And sharing the results. So 65% of you are aware of HS 2022, but 35% of you are not. So it's about 2/3 of the audience are aware of the new system. On the next slide, though, it is my delight to be joined today by Paul Woodward, a trade and customs specialist with the Institute, and we'll be joined later on by Hamish Mackay for the Q&A, and Hamish is a customs and trade specialist team lead at the Institute. Hamish, I hope I didn't butcher your name there. Sorry, I just realised I hadn't said it verbally before. But Paul, that was a really interesting response to that poll from our audience as ever. So about 2/3 of people are aware of HS 2022. It's something many traders may not be aware of because of the Omicron uncertainty and Brexit rule changes probably being a priority right now, let's face it. But does this response surprise you at all in any way?
Hi, Will, and welcome everybody to today's webinar. In relation, no, not really, not surprising. Yes, there's been a lot of information being circulated, whether it's on social media or alerts from the World Customs Organization. So traders would be aware of that. Obviously, as we've seen, and we've got another Cobra meeting today, Plan B's come in, and Omicron's going to probably take the headlines there because we all want to make sure that we're safe and sound, especially coming up to the festive period. I suppose a bigger question is, if you don't know about it, then that's great because you'll find out today. But if you do, you may be aware of it, but you may not know how that could impact your business. So again, very useful to be on the webinar today as well.
Thanks, Paul. And yeah, very much, as Paul said, hoping everyone stays safe over the next couple of weeks is obviously again, a slightly alarming time. But on the next slide, I'm going to hand over to Paul to begin the presentation and to also say a little bit about the series this presentation is part of. So over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Will. Yes. So yeah, these webinar series that we're doing, last one of this calendar year. So great way to end it. And it's all about trading in uncertain times and the enhanced support that the Institute of Export and International Trade can offer. And to really working with traders and businesses, we've now developed a new trading in uncertain times suites. This gives you real-time news alerts, what's happening, what's the latest updates from negotiations with government. We've also got a really enhanced telephone helpline for business members only. So if you're not a member, I would encourage signing up to take full use of that. There's a live web chat function there as well. If it's out of hours, you can just leave a message and one of our consultants, dedicated consultants, will come back to you in office working times. Obviously, we've got these expanded range of webinars we are delivering as well, and again we are launching from January a new one-day training course in regard to potential trading in uncertain times, what can happen, how you can mitigate this, and what tools you can use for your business to help you navigate any uncertain waters which may be coming up within international trade. And there is obviously a consultancy package there as well. We do managing trade, change and risk, where it's on-site visits. We can do an assessment of your business and give you recommendations about what you should be looking at to how to mitigate business challenges that you would have. So if you're interested, please do take part of that and sign up if you're not a member already. So today's webinar, we've got a quite clear agenda here. We're looking at what is a harmonized system. If you're not aware of it, we'll tell you what it's all about. What is HS 2022? Why is it important? We'll then look at actually how the tariff code structure is done, maintained, and what it means. We'll look at changes for traders, key considerations, and we're going to move on to the Q&A session where we're looking forward to all of your questions there. So what is a harmonized system? Well, the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System was developed by the World Customs Organization. It's really the international convention, and it came into force on the 1st of January 1998. And this really had three clear objectives. This is really to facilitate international cross-border trade, to reduce the expenses related to international trade, and to facilitate standardization of trade documentation and what type of data that we need to be providing. It is built in a legal, logical structure and is supported by well-defined rules to achieve your classification results. It does have more than 5,000 commodity groups, each having its own 6-digit code, which we will look at that tariff structure in the slides coming up. There are 21 sections, 98 chapters. It's really important to be aware that the harmonized system serves as the international basis for customs tariffs and the compilation of international trade statistics in more than 200 countries across the world. And really, for companies engaging in cross-border trade, you need to take a close look at your classification process and make sure you're ready to have the correct classifications and that they are compliant with the HS 2022 amendments that do come into place on the 1st of January next year. So with that, we want to look at what is HS 22. You may have seen press reports in regard to that, updates there. So I suppose the main thing is that every 5 years, 5 to 6 years actually, the harmonized system is actually reviewed by the World Customs Organization, the WCO. And this actually is the first change which has actually happened since 2017. So again, we've had a lot of changes since 2017 when we think of Brexit, you know, issues out there in international trade, trade disputes, which we spoke about in the last webinar. And obviously, it's important for anybody that deals with trade and e-commerce on an international basis. The key elements driving this change currently are environmental impact, technology, product innovations, food and agricultural bodies, and their reactions to this global pandemic that we've seen for the last 2 years. Also helps us keep track of trade patterns, advances in technology. That's why we have these updates done by the WCO every 5 years, because trade, international trade is evolving, more technologies come to the forefront. And the HS 2022 is the 7th edition of the harmonized system, and as we said, comes into play next year. With this, it also addresses the emerging international trade patterns. We're looking at health and safety matters of worldwide concern. Pandemic does come into that, as well as protection of societies from various threats to humankind as well. So it really plays a forefront, especially with the Omicron variant that we're seeing at the moment. One second, just. So now we're going to look at the commodity code structure here. So these are made up of 8, 10 or 14 digits. So we've got a nice little animation coming out here. So the first 6 digits are known as what we call as a harmonized system on the structure based on the WCO. Now, these would be recognized in any customs country around the world. Only the first 6 digits though, yeah, but these are known globally. So if I was looking to import into Malaysia, fine silks, then if I've got the first 6 digits from the UK tariff, then those would be the same within the Malaysian tariff schedule as well. When we go to the 8 digits, this is used for exporting goods out of a country. So again, away from the HS, you're now going 2 digits further. And this is really going to give you information in regard to sanctions, embargoes, any licensing that could be needed in order to export those goods. When we go to the 10 digits, this is country specific and it's about the import. So when we go into 10, another 2 digits, all about any customs duties, charges, VAT that could be due. So those extra 2 digits are going to give you your customs debt, which is going to be needed to pay. And it's also really important to understand that when we look at HS22, there will be updates to national tariff systems like the UK integrated tariff, and they'll be done both at the 8-digit level for exporting and also the 10-digit level for importing any of those goods. And finally, we can come to the 14 digits, which is used for products that attract additional measures such as excise duty, so tobacco, alcohol, hydrocarbon oils, anti-dumping duties, quotas. They would be then determined by the digits from 11 to 14. So let's look at the changes which traders can experience from HS22. This includes some major changes currently, which is about 351 currently, and they cover a wide range of goods. So for ourselves in the UK integrated tariff is the business source for these changes. This is where UK goods classification chapters at an 8 and a 10-digit level and correlation tables can be found. You obviously have the ability here for downloading these spreadsheets, and traders may find their products, materials and components easier for them to find out duty rates and also elements which could be new licensing which could come into play. Some examples that we have here, which we're just going to drop onto the screen now. So we've got some examples within the changes. So we've got electrical and electronic waste, so e-waste. Within the new revision that we've got, this includes specific provisions for classifications to assist countries in their work under the Basel Convention. We've also got nicotine-based products, unmanned aerial vehicles, also known as drones, and these new provisions shall simplify that classification of such products, which have been quite troublesome previously to classify. Smartphones, they've got their own subheading now. So again, if you've got smartphones that you're importing, exporting, then it's got its own subheading now. So you would need to be aware of that. Glass fibers, metal forming machinery. So there's been major reconfigurations in this section as well. And the multi-purpose intermediate assemblies where, you know, more products are classified in their own right rather than generically. And this includes things like flat panel display modules. There's also a lot of new headings which are coming into place. So we've got 0309. This is a new heading for floors, meals and pellets of fish. Heading 2404, tobacco and manufactured tobacco substitute products. So again, okay, we could be looking at vape machines there as well. Heading 3827, this is mixtures of halogenated derivatives of methane, ethane and propane. We got 8485, machines for additive manufacturing. 8524, which is the flat panel models that we've mentioned already. So again, unmanned aircraft, the drones, they come in 8806 now. So again, really significant changes there that we are seeing, which businesses need to be aware of as we are moving forward. So just move down to the next slide. Thank you. Bit slow today, sorry about that. It's also worth noting that, as we said, national tariffs will change. Yeah. So the European Commission has also published its commodity code changes in October this year. And here are some examples really of what's been changed. We've got introduction in the EU of new subheadings for rose oil in chapter 33. New subheadings for aluminium composite panels in 76. There's been amendments to classification for pharmaceutical substances. So if you're in that sector, and obviously those are being imported into the EU or exported, then you need to understand what those commodity codes now are, because there's been a lot of amendments in that area. The gradual reduction of rates for products is also covered by agreement on IT products. And obviously we're going to put the link in the chat window today, but part of the material we've put the hyperlink there to the changes for the EU for HS 2022 as well, just so you can go right to the point and understand what changes would affect you. Also mentioned previously, you've got to use the UK integrated tariff. Now, it's great seeing and hearing all these changes and what's happening, but where can I actually go to understand how this affects me? Well, all information about the changes that impact UK traders can be found on the UK integrated tariff. We're going to drop that in the chat window as well for you, although the link's on the bottom of this slide. In the top menu bar, you go to the update section. This will confirm HS 2022 changes, including the correlation table. So what a correlation table is, it says this is what your commodity code used to be, this is what it is now. And in this section, you can either download the tables, or you can look at, in the help section, the classification guidance, which lists all of the affected areas, how they've changed and what the codes now are. So again, it's a one-stop shop portal for traders to go to evaluate that. In this, I'd also point out that obviously with the Institute of Export and International Trade, we do run a commodity code classification online training course. This will be very apt moving to the new year. If you need to understand more about HS22, the changes, how to properly classify and how to look at for any challenges that your business could face, but it also could be reduction of activities and requirements that you may need. So looking at the key considerations, I suppose we need to look at this of what traders should do to ensure your commodity codes are correct. Remember, you do need to validate any changes against this correlation table. Be aware of your global supply chain. If you are exporting around the world, you'll need to validate against correlation tables in the country of import, or work with businesses you export to make sure they are declaring the correct codes in country. So again, not just so UK specific, this is a global update and puts lots of challenges out there, especially if you've got global operations. If you're using current commodity codes and they've changed, but you don't update your commercial invoices when you're shipping, which then that information is taken for your customs declarations, they can be reverted back to you, or they can be refused. This is going to create delays in your supply chain, unhappy customers. So again, can have impacts on the supply chain. And there's quite a few of those impacts already with, the cost of drivers, the ability, the resource availability of drivers, which we've known, which is a global issue at the moment. So adding to this, not having your commodity codes correct could bring extra challenges to your business operational model. And remember that new sections that you could fall under could mean new duty rates. Yeah. So again, bearing in mind what your risk exposure is from a duty perspective. Remember, if you are under the trade cooperation agreement using preferential origin, if you've got a change in a commodity code, that could put you into a different requirement in order of how you need to qualify. So again, knock-on effects here. I need to review my tariffs. Are they correct? Yes, they are. Okay, has that impacted me being able to claim preferential origin? You know, getting that 0% customs duty rate if the goods are coming from the EU or you are exporting to the EU. And it's critical for both your imports and your export classifications to be correct. And make sure that your global supply chain is aligned. Remember, you know, with the EU at the moment, no free movement of goods. Customs declarations are needed. Making sure your carriers, you're having this conversation, your freight forwarders, they're aware of the changes, where your products fall into. If they've moved to products, is there extra licensing that they would need to be made aware of? Extra tasks that they may need to perform. So again, really important considerations there for businesses to pay attention of. So when we think about this, the first thing is really to think about the action plan. How are we going to do this? So the three clear steps that I would always say is, first off, review your tariff codes against the HS22 changes. If you are a global business, I would be doing that review by the correlation tables in said country. So if I'm importing components into materials into the UK, I'll be reviewing the integrated tariff. Any of mine affected that I need to change, updating my system. So if you have CRM or ERP systems that automatically create your customs paperwork, your shipping invoices, make sure that standing data has been updated as well. Also, if you're exporting, look at potentially codes in different countries. Is there any changes there? So it is a global assessment which should be needed to be done. Then validate what changes need to be done and update those systems. Make freight forwarders aware, making suppliers, customers aware of how these changes have impacted your product and how they are coded. And then finally, ensure correct codes are used so products arrive at their destination on time and in compliance. Anything not compliance is going to delay your supply chain, your shipments, and have a knock-on effect on revenue and goods being delivered. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Will, please, for the poll question.
Thanks, Paul. A really concise introduction to what's obviously a quite significant change for traders. So that's a great presentation. Thank you so much. I'm just going to launch our second poll, and this is asking, do you think your business will be impacted by changes in the new HS 2022 edition? Yes, no, not sure being the options. And as you're answering that poll, we're going to head into the questions now. I'm delighted to be joined by Hamish. Hi, Hamish. Glad to have you with us as well. Paul, if I can start with a question. Hi, Hamish. If I can start with a question for yourself, Paul, just picking up on some things you're saying, and indeed the theme of this poll, just how many businesses do you think are likely to be impacted? Because some of those examples you said they're obviously quite not necessarily niche, but they're very specific products. So how many businesses could be impacted by this?
Thank you, Will. Yeah, well, that's a great question. All businesses will be affected by the update, you know, whether you're importing, exporting, imports into the UK, exporting globally. But the impact will be determined by the products, components and materials that you move internationally. In total, we know there's 351 changes there to this tariff code, and this includes amendments and introductions to new headings. So when we look at this, you know, it's been confirmed that there is over 370 headings which have been added, and that's over 130 additional notes at the bottom of potential added subheadings. They've deleted 146 and they've modified over 272. So when we look at this, and you said about the niche markets, which is really important, the main changes there are to agricultural, food and tobacco sectors. There's 77 changes in that. Chemical sector, we're looking at 58 changes. The wood sector, 31. Textiles, 21. Base metal, 27. And electrical goods and machinery, there's 63 into that as well. So again, you know, they are defined there. And I think the correlation tables is what the main business benefit is going to be. So I suppose when we're looking at this, look at your sectors in international trade where changes will be. So if it's environmental impacts, this is going to be about e-waste. Subheadings have been created now for controlling cross-border movements of hazardous waste and their disposal. Yeah, we've got combating terrorism. So there's subheadings there for new ones for dual-use goods. So radioactive materials, biological safety cabinets, you know. So again, this obviously has been introduced to maintain international peace and security. We've got shifting trade patterns. So here we're looking at the new subheadings for smartphones. We've got drones, we've got nicotine-based products, you see, so when we're going to vape machines now. Restricted or controlled materials, we've got new subheadings for them. So again, when we're looking at these hazardous chemicals and pollutants, you know, think about, you know, green policy, green strategy being rolled out globally, they've come into the mix. And also health and safety issues. So thinking about the global pandemic, yeah, there's new provisions that have been provided for cell cultures and cells, therapy tools, clinical trial kits, as well as rapid diagnostic kits, which is going to be really critical with the Omicron variant as well.
Thanks, Paul. I'm just going to share the results to that poll. It's a lot of people who think they will be affected. So 47% have said yes, only 17% no, 36% not sure. And just to give everyone context, there's about 350 to 400 people on the line today. So that's at least a couple of hundred companies on this line who could be affected by it. So it is a significant change. And I hope that puts things into context, everyone. But if we move on to the next, lost the full screen. But just while you're doing that, Paul, we've had a few people ask when will the new UK kind of 8 and 10-digit codes become available. Also, some people ask from the EU perspective as well. So when will the new UK EU commodity codes change as a result of these HS 2023?
Well, new chapters and headings have been created. There's an update, like we said, in the help and the update section within the UK integrated tariff. They are out there. And all the changes that we've mentioned today and have been viewed there. I would obviously recommend that people view the online tariff in there. Obviously, have a look through the web page currently, which is there. Have a look at the commodity codes, right? They're broken down by 8 and 10. So export and import. Look at what you're exporting. What are my tariff codes? Roll down the list. Is there anything that I need to be aware of? Is there any changes which impact me? If you're importing, look at the 10-digit code list. That's your duties, your taxes, your customs debt, your licensing. So again, looking at those which you've got at the moment and just seeing, have they been changed? Have they been shifted at all? Yeah. And this is the assessment which people can do. If you understand that there's any changes there which affect you under certain chapters which you've moved to, there's also the correlation tables by chapter that you can download as well. So it doesn't mean, okay, if I'm in agricultural, I don't need a correlation table for electrical machinery. So I can just say, okay, mine are agricultural, these are my changes, let me download that correlation table to what it is and to what it should be in the future. And then the backup exercise of that is when you know your new commodity code, what are the requirements? Is there extra licensing? Is there now duty exposure? Can I still use preferential origin? Real-time business questions to be asked. And unfortunately, it's not overnight process that you can do, because it's going to take time based on the amount of materials or products you are importing and exporting.
Just to say, we have posted some of the links on the slides, and including links to the UK integrated tariff tool, but also the a link to the correlation tables too. On the correlation tables, please use the second link rather than the first. That's the more up to date one. Just to let you know. And just in terms of when they become available, so I think on the latest tariff stop notice, it says the 8-digit codes are available, with 10-digit information will be available soon. So is that
Yep.
one for people just to kind of stay up to date with, make sure you sign up to the tariff stop presses?
Yeah, tariff stop presses, definitely keep a revision of that. To be honest with you, I think the government's roughly about 50% there. We are expecting this to be live by the start of next week, because they need to give time to traders to be able to adopt these changes and update their supply chains, their customs paperwork, and work with their third-party providers and freight forwarders. So they will come in due course, but do stay abreast of those changes.
Thanks, Paul. We had a question in from, who was it? Christina, who asked, will there be any sort of period of grace period, given that all the information has not yet been published? I mean, will there be leniency from government, do we think, in terms of applying the right codes during this period of change?
I think you usually get leniency within the first month. That's generally what's happened, but they want you to get it right first. You could get more questions from your freight forwarders, yeah, because remember that we are using digital systems like Chief. It's about when Chief's been updated with all of these codes in order for you to be able to fulfill those, and also the CGS system, which is used in Northern Ireland and throughout Europe. We usually see about a month's grace there for traders to get all their tariff codes correctly there. Because obviously, if we look at it now, we're on the 15th of December. No, not too long until we're at the 1st of January after the festive period. And, it is time when lots of businesses have a lot of staff which are on annual leave because of the period, or there's manufacturing shutdowns. So again, there will be some leniency. I don't know if Hamish has any other further comments he would like to make on that at all.
You're on mute, Hamish.
Nothing to add just at the moment, but thanks for asking.
No problem, thank you.
I do have a couple of questions coming for you, Hamish, though you're not let off the hook just yet. Just to address one question though, so one from Elliot, which was asking, will there be any likely further changes issued between now and Jan 2022? And obviously we're expecting the 10-digit codes to be confirmed and finalised, but again, it's that use the stop presses to make sure that you're staying abreast of any changes.
Yeah, sure, yeah, and that is the mandate which businesses should use, most definitely.
Grand. And on that last link I sent in the chat, you should be able to see more information about how you can sign up to those alerts from HMRC. Hamish, let's give Paul a break and bring you into this. So my understanding so far is that the UK has adopted the same commodity codes by and large as the EU post-Brexit. Will the new HS edition have any impact on this and lead to any possible divergence?
Well, yes, this is currently obviously relates to the WCO updates, and it's not specific changes in commodity codes between the UK and the EU. The EU and the UK, as we've seen already, are both already updating their online tariff, the tariff and the UK online tariff. I think the biggest issue we're going to have, of course, is that the EU-UK trade agreement specifically has information about origin based on tariffs, so there's going to be some elements of that which are not aligned with the changes in tariff. So although the tariffs will be aligned between the EU and the UK, there is going to be a period that we're going to have to perhaps wait for some information. I believe there is already a committee that's working on it to update the UK-EU trade agreement to ensure that we are aligned, but at the moment, as of the 1st of January, there may well be some inconsistencies. But obviously, nothing can be ruled out, especially with discussions ongoing about the future relationship. So realistically, this needs to be monitored. Nothing can be ruled out at this time.
Yeah, well, if I could just add a point there as well. Great comment by Hamish there, but also thinking about Northern Ireland as well, so UK integrated tariff if you're moving goods or they're imported into Northern Ireland. But if those goods could be at risk of then travelling to Southern Ireland, so therefore entering the EU, you'd have to be aware of those European commodity codes as well as the UK. So to define those at-risk goods and obviously what your EU duty liability could be. So again, it's about knowing the supply chain, the different customs areas you're going into and what customs areas, regions have those changes as well, which is something really important for businesses to be aware of.
Yeah, thank
I
you,
was going to
Paul.
ask about Northern Ireland actually, because we had
Mm.
questions in from Gerard and from Tony just now as
Right.
well, asking about what the impact will be for GBNI trade. And I know there's a different online tariff tool for Northern Ireland. So yeah, could you maybe it's one for Hamish if you want to start on this one. What's the situation with Northern Ireland?
Okay, so imports to Northern Ireland are based on the UK integrated tariff. And as we've seen, and anybody who's using the online tariff will see that there is a link on there that we can select the Northern Ireland tariff as well to give us an idea as to what the differences might be. So if you are then supplying goods into the EU through Northern Ireland, this will be determined as risk, and you should validate changes in the EU tariff for any additional EU duties that could be due. Both governments are trying their best, and Paul has already outlined that they're more than 50% there updating their tariffs, but there is going to be a period, I think, where there's going to be a little bit of misalignment. So the main thing is you've just got to keep track of your goods that are moving and ensure that you know what the tariffs are on both the UK and the EU. But the Northern Ireland tariff should be aligned once the 1st of January comes in.
Yeah, I suppose well, the main thing from clients' perspective, like Hamish has rightly said, is being understanding of your supply chain. If your goods are going into Northern Ireland from Great Britain and they've got the ability where they would be at risk, that means they're not going to be consumed, sold within Northern Ireland, and they've got that risk of going to Southern Ireland and then entering the EU, then there could be different tariffs, different customs duty rates, potentially different requirements that businesses would need to be aware of, because their exposure from a duty perspective could be a lot greater. So again, it's when I mention looking at the customs areas in place, you'd be looking at the UK, yeah, you'd be looking at the EU and any other country that you're importing to, just to be aware of all the risks which are there. But the correlation tables are there to make this as smooth as possible for you and for you to understand that. Like Hamish said, any goods coming in, let's say America, Australia, into Northern Ireland directly, they will be done under the UK integrated tariff. So it's more in regards to the risk of goods entering Northern Ireland and then moving on to the EU.
Thanks, guys. We've had a really good question in. I think it just goes to the heart of the experience traders will be going through at the moment. So it comes from, I hope I'm saying this right, Lova or Lova.
No.
Apologies if not. They've asked, and it's basically about how to use the integrated tariff to figure out if there's been any changes. So they've said, if I would search for a code that I didn't know had changed, will the search results show that the code has changed, or would it just not show up at all in the results?
Well, if you, oh, sorry, did you want me to take that, Will? Sorry, I was just
Yeah,
jumping
sure,
in ahead
sure.
of Hamish then. I do apologise, Hamish. Yes, so when you're looking at this, obviously, if you're searching a tariff, it's just going to search at the tariff that you want. It's going to give you options. Now, when you do a general search, it will give you options into these are the apparent tariffs that you could use. My first bit is, like I said, there's in here, you're looking at really 5 clear steps. Understand your tariff. Go into the integrated tariff, go to the update section. This will give you a list of all the tariff codes based on the chapter. So if I know I'm in chapter 51, is 51 included? No. Okay, my tariffs have stayed the same. There's no change there. That will be reflected when you search your commodity code up. If I was looking at leather products, so I was in 4202, there was a change in Chapter 42, then that would then be reflected within that correlation table saying, yes, that was your tariff code 2022. This means that this is now going to be your code. Then you should be looking that up within the tariff saying, that's where my goods now need to be classified. What are my duty rates? Is there any licensing? Is there any controls? Have a look, because don't just think just because the numbering's changed that's it. When you get to your tariff, scroll down to the supplementary notes, because there's been additions to that as well. There may be extra information provided there, easements, clarifications of how you determine that it fits into here. So again, these have all been updated as well, and the supplementary notes are really critical. So being able to do that is really important. I would also say that you should also check those codes, but you can also use the WCO tools as well. So the World Customs Organization, the World Trade Organization, on their websites, they do have the tariff download facility, which actually allows you to put your country in, your product, and you can then extract there all the information of what those tariff codes, duty and rates would be in a range of countries. So it allows you there from that download facility to say, okay, right, now I know that's my tariff, put that in, select all the countries that you probably export or import to, and it will provide you a downloaded copy of all of the rates in that country. So that is a really useful tool if you're looking from a global perspective as well, Will.
Thanks, Paul. That's actually answered a question I was about to put, which is how do you get access to other countries' tariff codes? So that seems one option, but presumably each country has its own equivalent to what the UK's integrated tariff tool would be.
Yeah, they all done at national level, but I suppose the beautiful thing about the World Trade Organization is the fact that with this download facilitation tool, it means you can view all of those with all the changes which have gone in any country around the world. Just remember, they're only for WTO members, so 200 countries around the world, 98% of world trade. So it's going to give you that one-stop shop to, as soon as you know what your new commodity code is, to select all the countries you want the information on at the 6-digit level, extract it, and then you'll get that lovely report, which it's a really useful tool rather than having to go to a tariff schedule in each independent country that you've got operations in. Yeah, it gives you that download ability to get the information in one clear portal.
Thanks, Paul. We've only got a couple more minutes left. This is a 3/4 of an hour webinar today. So I just want to, I think we've touched a lot on kind of how you can find out information related to changes, but back to some of the practical points you're making towards the end of your webinar, it'd be great to hear Hamish's thoughts on this as well. We had a comment in from Sharon, which is to say, remember to communicate any financial changes to changes in duty rates within your business, as this may affect pricing structure or financial forecasts. I mean, that seems a really valid point, and Paul's obviously brought up a few points earlier on as well. Hamish, is there anything you'd add to the practical steps businesses should be doing to prepare for these changes?
Well, no, I think that Paul has already covered most of them, and in particular, looking at the update section of the integrated tariff, there's a number of areas, obviously, where there's new tariff codes have come in. So your old tariff code is no longer valid for certain products, in particular things like UAVs. And in fact, we've had some customers in the past that have UAVs. Those previous tariffs, so they do need to make sure they do understand any changes and additional duties, because as you've just pointed out, the financial implications are quite important. And we've had other areas where people have looked at particular tariffs where, particularly for certain types of goods where you've got mixed produce, for instance, to ensure that they are meeting the requirements of the tariff, because there are certain areas where, unfortunately, the origin statements from the UK TCA, EU TCA, aren't always the same as the for heaven's sake, got the name, for the standard WTO rules of origin, for instance. So do be aware. I can't really express how important it is to go on the integrated tariff and check what those changes are. Everything is listed, whether they've been removed, whether they've been changed to for all of the products. That's got to be your first point of call, and have a look, because and if you haven't signed up for the emails from the tariff, please do, because they will let you know what changes for specific tariff codes that are relevant to you.
Brilliant. It's right if I just drop in there quickly, Will. Yeah, I want to pick up just on the financial elements. So be aware of your Incoterms. If you're responsible for importing, you could have different duty rates. That means more unrecoverable costs for the business. If you are shipping DAP terms, so your customer could be the importer, there may be changes to that. More customs duties to pay, which obviously the VAT is recoverable in the country as long as they're a registered entity there. Also bearing in mind B2C sales. If you've now got to pay more duty, your price may need to go up. Intercompany pricing be considered. Also, this relationship internally between operations, import, export and finance needs to be developed, because obviously if there's changes, more costs, then forecast budgets need to be increased to account for that. Think about your duty deferment account. Do I have enough coverage on that, which allows me to delay my payments of that? So again, real key elements which should be considered. It shouldn't just be a supply chain, import, export team, trade compliance function. They should be brought up with all parts of the business. And you could, if you've got freight forwarders declaring goods on your behalf and they're paying the duties and the tax for you, remember that tax cost will go up, and then you've got their commission percentage on top of it as well. So real key things there to bear in mind. Thank you, Will.
Actually, can I just come in? Something else that came to mind as you were talking, Paul, is on top of that is remember that there are special procedures that you can make use of that can reduce your duty and tax liability. So, for instance, you can bring it in into a customs warehouse if you know it's going to come in and go out again, and defer payment of any duties and taxes. But equally, inward processing, remember that you have the option to import your goods under duty suspension, provided you can show that they're going to be re-exported as part of another product. So it's very important that you look at the special procedures, and the government website is a really, really useful tool. Gives you all the information you need as to how you can reduce your duty and tax liabilities by using customs special procedures.
Guys, I'm afraid we've run out of time because this is a slightly shorter than usual build webinar, but thank you so much. I think that was really interesting, some of the answers there, some of the tips you're giving as well. And just to make a note, what we'll do, there's been a load of requests for some of the links you mentioned a few minutes ago, Paul, the WTO links. So we'll try to include those links in the slides we send out over the next day or so. But yeah, I'm going to start wrapping up. Thank you once again to Paul and Hamish for the presentation and answers today. Really interesting stuff, and we hope you found that useful. Before we go, just a reminder that today's webinar comes not too long after the launch of our new Trading in Uncertain Times suite of enhanced support, helping traders to continue trading despite Brexit uncertainties, global supply chain issues, ongoing geopolitical tensions, and of course the ongoing pandemic. As Paul mentioned earlier, this suite includes real-time news and enhanced telephone helpline for our business members, a new live web chat function, a new one-day training course and consultancy, and more webinars just like this one in the new year. For more information, please visit the link at the bottom. It was also posted in the chat earlier. For now, though, thank you for tuning in. This is our last public webinar before Christmas. So to all of our loyal and to our new listeners, I'd like to wish you all, on behalf of the Institute, a delightful and safe festive period. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, and thank you.